Once upon a time, in a small village nestled among green hills, there lived an old woman. Her hair was as white as snow, her skin was covered with the wrinkles of time, but her eyes were bright, radiant, and full of love. She lived alone in a small house next to a large banyan tree, where every morning she would sit quietly, watching the people of the village pass by. A warm smile was always present on her face, no matter how hard life was. Because of this, everyone in the village loved and respected her, for her calmness and optimism brought joy to everyone, even during the darkest times. Her husband had passed away long ago, and she had no children to care for her in her old age. Yet, she never complained or let loneliness weigh heavily on her heart. Every morning, she would sit under the banyan tree, smiling at everyone who walked by, always ready for friendly conversation. The people of the village loved talking to her because her words were always warm and comforting, like a soft blanket on a cold winter night. They felt that every worry and fatigue would fade away whenever she spoke, as if a small flame within them had been reignited. The villagers worked hard to make a living. Some were farmers toiling the fertile land, others were carpenters, making exquisite wooden furniture, and some worked at the small market, selling fruits and vegetables and clothes. However, life was not always easy. Sometimes the rain wouldn't come and the crops would dry up. Other times people fell ill and could not work. Many lived with worry and sadness, but the old woman's smile never faded. Her optimism was a great source of strength for everyone in the village. One day, a young woman named Anika came to visit her. Her face was covered in tears and her voice trembled as she spoke. "I don't know what to do, Grandma. My husband went to the city to find work, but he hasn't sent any money back. My children are hungry and I'm scared. What if something bad has happened to him?" The old woman looked at Anika with gentle eyes and smiled softly. "Sit down here, my dear," she said, patting the ground beside her. "Tell me, what do you think will happen?" Anika wiped her tears with the sleeve of her sari, trying to control her emotions, and replied, "I don't know, Grandma. I feel like everything is going wrong. What if my husband can't find work? What if he forgets about us? What if we have nothing to eat?" The old woman listened patiently, and after a moment she gently shook her head. "Anika, when we fill our minds with negative thoughts, our hearts become heavy and everything feels worse. But when we focus on good thoughts, our hearts feel lighter, and strangely, good things begin to happen." Anika looked at her doubtfully. "But how can I think of good things when everything around me is so bad?" The old woman smiled again. "Let me tell you a story. Once there was a poor man who had nothing. He had no food, no money, and no family. One day he sat by the river, crying bitterly. An old woman passing by saw him and stopped. She asked, "Why are you crying, my son?" The man said, "I have nothing. How can I ever be happy?" The old woman smiled and said, "You have the river that flows endlessly. You have the trees that give you shade and fruit, and you have the sun that warms you every day. Look around you. There is beauty and life everywhere. If you only think about what you don't have, you will always be sad. But if you think about what you do have, you will find peace." The man listened carefully to her words. He stopped crying and began to notice the river, the trees, and the bright sun. Slowly, he began to feel better. From that day on, he started working hard, and his life began to change. The old woman turned to Anika and said, "Do you see, my dear, the man's life didn't change because of a magical spell. It changed because he changed the way he thought. When we think positively, we find the strength to face our problems. When we only think about what's wrong, we feel weak and hopeless." Anika listened carefully, then asked, "Can my thinking really make a difference?" The old woman nodded and smiled. "Yes, my dear. If you wake up every morning and tell yourself, 'Today will be a good day,' you will find the strength to care for your children and face whatever challenges come your way. But if you keep thinking about what might go wrong, you will feel sad and unable to act." Anika wiped her tears and nodded. "Slowly, I understand now, Grandma. I will try to think good thoughts from now on." The old woman smiled warmly, her gaze like a comforting light, dispelling all worries. That's the first step, my dear. From that day on, Anika began to follow the old woman's advice. Every morning she told herself, "Today will be a good day." She worked hard, took care of her children, and kept hope in her heart, waiting for good news from her husband. A few weeks later, she received a letter from him. He had found a job in the city and was sending money back home. Anika's eyes filled with tears of joy, and she hurried to the old woman's house to share the good news. The old woman smiled and said, "See, my dear, when we think positively, we invite good things into our lives. Problems will always come, but if we face them with a hopeful heart, we can overcome them." The old woman's wisdom spread throughout the village. Many people came to her to share their troubles. She always gave the same advice: think good thoughts, and good things will follow. Gradually, life in the village became brighter. The villagers began to believe in the power of positive thinking and live with more optimism. They loved and respected the old woman not just for her advice, but for the miracles she had brought into their lives. Life is not always easy, but with a positive attitude and a heart full of hope, we can face challenges and invite happiness into our hearts. Always remember that a hopeful heart is a strong heart.